Alright, this video we're going to be covering the difference between a block and an inline element. Okay, so let me just throw up a slide on screen here while I fill out these basic styles. Okay, so this is what I got right here. These are just some basic styles. Everything, you basically know all this already. Okay, so let's make an H1 and say I am an H1, and the same thing for H2. H2, and let's look at this. Okay, I actually forgot to put the style on here. Class style. That's what this is for. Okay, so yeah, the whole point of block elements is they take up the width of their container, and in this case the container or the parent of these elements is the body, and the body by default just takes up the full width of your screen. You could actually make this smaller, and you notice when you make this smaller, it's making the element smaller, because when you make this smaller, the body's getting smaller, because again, the body is just the size of your screen. So when the screen changes size, the body will change size. So everything that comes before and after the block element will have its own line. So what I mean by that is, let me just show you here. So the strong tag isn't a the strong tag is an inline element, but if you put one before and after the H1 is going to stay on a full line by itself. So let's just see what that looks like. So you can see that the strong tag and both strong tags come before and after the H1, because when you put the H1, it starts on a new line and it takes up that whole line. So there's no space for this, and there's no space for this one either. So that's basically what a block level element is. So for examples of block elements are the div tag, the paragraph tag, and all the H1 tags, and also all of the semantic HTML5 tags that we saw earlier. Okay, so I have some more elements here, and these are all inline elements. So let's look how these differ from what we had before. And again, I just made the same mistake, is I forgot to put the style on them. It's not super important, but you could better see that these elements are okay with being on the same line as each other. If we put an H1 anywhere in here, let's just this one's gonna lie a bit. Oh no, I could do it like this. I thought this was gonna continue to say strong, even though it wasn't a strong. So you see the H1 comes in and it just starts on a new line automatically. So when I talk about block and inline, that's the display property in CSS. So you could change the display property to be anything. You could turn a anchor tag into a block element, and you could turn a H1 into an inline element. And that's what I'm gonna do right now. So H1 display inline. So now this is all gonna work pretty good. So these all stay on the same line now, and this one right here is an H1. Likewise, you could put a strong tag, set the display to block, and then it will start on a new line, and it will take up that whole line right there. And another thing I want to cover is the display of inline block. So display of inline block it's basically the same thing as inline. So let's look at this here. So the H1 is still inline, but there's certain things that you can't do to an inline element. Things like, here, let me show you. Let's see, set the width 300 pixels. Let's see here. So it doesn't change anything. Now let's see. Now it works. So there's certain things that you can't affect when an element is inline. You can't really change the width. I don't think you could add a, let's see. Let's actually test it. Just because I don't want to give you any wrong information. Okay, so margin, this works. Okay, but that's still inline block. I don't think it will work if it's just inline. It won't. So usually, depending on what you're doing, I'll always want to set my inline elements to inline block because you just have more power over what you could do to it. If you don't want to change the width or add any margin or anything like that, then you're safe with just using inline elements. But a lot of times you do want to add some margin to something. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so to wrap this video up pretty quick, I just want to show you, and I got all this stuff copied to my clipboard so I don't have to waste too much time doing it. If you look here, there's the style class being used a lot. There's a nav, a section, a side, and a footer. And here I'm just setting the section to display inline block, the aside to inline block, and I'm setting the widths accordingly. So these two things, the section and aside, they're going to be, because they're inline block, they're going to be able to come, they're basically going to be able to stay on the same line. And because I'm setting the widths based off the screen size, they're always going to have enough space to stay beside each other. So let me show you what I mean by that. Right here. So you see you could change the screen size. Right now they're going to do that, but that's fine. It still works for this example. The point of this is that I just wanted to show you that if you look here, the H3 is inside the section right here, and the H3 is only taking up the full width of the section. So if you made the section smaller, the H3 would become smaller. So it doesn't just take up the full size of your screen, it just takes up the full size of your container. In this case, this container is, however big it is, it doesn't really matter. It's 58%. But that's not the point. The point is just that I just wanted you to understand that when you're putting block elements, they're only going to take up the size of their container. So if you change the size of their container, that's going to affect them as well. All right, so that's it for this one.